There are lots of different kinds of tables out there playing D&D. And by tables, I just mean groups of people. I suspect for most tables, D&D is not literally the only RPG they have ever played. If you check out the list of RPG events at Gen Con every year, you can see how many tables are reserved for each RPG. And I was really surprised to see how many people went to Gen Con last year to play RPGs that have nothing to do with D&D. Not another edition of D&D, not a clone of D&D or a fork. RPGs literally unrelated to that entire family of products. Hugely popular. I think most tables are like my friends and I were in the 80s and 90s. They start with D&D, they like it, but pretty quickly they want to see what else is out there. Why not? RPGs are fun. Just like video games are fun. Board games are fun. I doubt there are groups out there that have only ever played one board game over and over for years, and they never tried another game. Because that would be weird. I have distinct and powerful memories of my friends and I climbing into John's Pathfinder and driving to Brookhurst Hobbies to buy Shadowrun, which we immediately went home and played. I remember driving in my friend Dave's dad's Jaguar to Jim's store in Costa Mesa, buying Deadlands, and immediately going home to try it. And you can see why, right? Shadowrun is cyberpunk with magic, like elves and dwarves and spells and the Tyrell Corporation. The cover alone completely sold it. It was a cool, unique idea, and we were dying to play it. I remember just looking through the list of gear was really inspiring. Deadlands? It's the Wild West with magic and zombies. That's amazing. I want to do that. This is normal, and looking at everybody playing all these different games at Gen Con, I think it's still pretty normal. So that is not what this video is about. I think there are also a lot of groups like mine where we eventually became obsessed with one other RPG and played only it for years. And for my group, that was Champions, a superhero RPG, which is pretty abstruse by any modern standards. But even though we played Champions every week for like 3 years, we eventually put it down and played other games. Just like there are games you used to play years ago, you loved it then, but eventually you moved on. That's normal. I bet there are lots of groups who've had that experience, are having it now. So that is also not what this video is about. I bet there are lots of groups like mine where we spent about 20 years playing lots of different games, but eventually we just went back to D&D for a bunch of reasons, including it's the old familiar, it's nostalgic, and it's in many ways the path of least resistance. I bet that's pretty common. We played lots of different RPGs, we liked some of them, some didn't really work on us, but eventually we went back to D&D because it was what we all knew. Perfectly normal, nothing weird about that. So as you can guess, that is also not what this video is about. I do notice these days, especially these days, a lot of folks online, and that includes Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, Blue Sky, all over, complaining about one of two things. Either they're complaining about how annoying D&D is, how annoying to play, annoying to run, or they're complaining about how they really want to play another game, but they can't get their group to even try anything but D&D. That is what this video is about. We're going to talk about those folks who complain about how annoying D&D is, but who refuse to try anything else, and those groups where the DM wants to try other games, but they can't get their group to try another game. And those are two very different problems, and in fact, I think neither of them is a problem. Not really. Sort of. One of them is. You'll see. Hey everybody, Matt Colville here. If you've been online for any length of time in those spaces where people talk about D&D or RPGs, you have seen folks who seem to spend most of their time complaining about how annoying they find 5th edition. Listening to these folks, they have a lot of complaints. There is a lot about D&D that people find weird and annoying. Whenever this happens, I see these folks getting dogpiled on, retweeted, subtweeted, ratioed by other people saying, just play a different game. And in fact, it is this behavior, the people saying, just play a different game, that got me started on all this. And you would think, given that my company is about to release its first original fantasy RPG, that I would be on the side of the people doing the dogpiling and subtweeting, because it is in my best interests to get people to try our game, which I'm not even going to mention the name of because I don't want folks to get distracted. The only reason I even bring it up is you would think that I would agree with the people saying, just play a different game. Play a game that doesn't annoy you. But I am not on their side. I am on the side of the people complaining. Because in my experience, the people who will try other games, they don't go online to complain about D&D in the first place. They get annoyed, then they get fed up, then they go find a new game. Spoilers, new games are fun, right? So if this person online complaining about how janky D&D is was the kind of person who might try something else, they would have. That would have already happened. The reason these folks are complaining is because they love D&D. They actually genuinely love it, and complaining about the things we love is normal. It is not a problem to solve. Stop bullying people who are just venting. Stop trying to score points off of them. The points don't matter. Haven't we all had the experience of complaining a lot about something or someone we love? Aren't most of the people we love incredibly messy and annoying and full of contradictions? You know, most of my favorite games are janky as hell. How do I know that? Because I play the shit out of them. Why did I play the shit out of a bunch of janky games? Because I loved them. So yeah, obviously I would love it if people played this game I am incredibly proud of, but when I see folks online bullying people who are complaining about D&D, I do not think, yeah, they should come try our game. I think, let those people complain. It's normal. What's not normal is badgering somebody you don't even know about the games they choose to play. Do not act like you are somehow doing them a favor by being a dick. Those people use so much manipulative language. Well, shouldn't people try new things? Shouldn't people be more open-minded? Hey, guess what? You have no idea how open-minded those folks are or aren't because you don't know them. You don't know them and they didn't ask you for advice. Anyway, I'm sorry. I get excited. I feel really strongly about this. When you see folks online complaining about how janky D&D is, let them complain. It is not a problem to be solved. They are just venting about something they love. Moving on. Okay, so there is this other kind of group. Again, I think this is a minority of tables, probably not you, where there's one DM and they want to play other games, but they can't get their group to even try anything else. This is a completely different problem, and this is really what this video is about. I get really upset when I hear about this, which happens all the time. Just to be clear, here is what's happening. These people, these 4 or 5 people, do no work outside the game, but they expect this person to do all the work for them every week. And when this person says, hey, I want to run something else, these people say, no, we will not play anything else. We require you to run the game we want to play and not the one you want to run. That upsets me. It makes me sort of angry. And let me tell you why. Because I meet these people all the time. You may be surprised to learn this, but me just going out into the world, like to lunch, to buy groceries, I meet people who recognize me. And when they do, and they stop me to tell me so, whatever else I'm doing, I stop and I try to give them the experience they're hoping for. I do the song and dance, happy to take a selfie, and to make sure like they feel like participants in this moment, I ask them, okay, you know who I am, you've seen the videos, are you running D&D? And if they are, I ask them to tell me about their game. How's it going? And this works. They come out of their shell a little, gives them something familiar to talk about. It gives me something to react to, ask about, which is fun. Then we shake hands, I say, nice meeting you, and life goes on and everyone's happy. I always say the same thing. These people are stopping me to tell me they think I'm awesome. I tell them, if you are running for your friends, I think you're awesome. Just make sure to tell your friends soon it will be their turn to run for you. And this is when I get sad and then I get angry because it is very common in these moments for the stranger who just stopped me on the street to say, oh, no one else will run. I'm a forever DM. Have you heard this phrase? Forever DM? Let me explain it to you as I understand it based on all these experiences. A forever DM is someone who wishes they could play. Every once in a while, they wish they could make characters and be a player in someone else's game, but no one else in their group will get behind the screen. So they feel like they are stuck being their group's DM. They are a never player, forever DM. If you are someone who loves running and you don't really care if you get to play, well, I don't think you're a forever DM, because the context for this phrase every single time I've ever heard it is, I wish I could play, but I can't because these people refuse to run for me. I run for them. I would like to play. They all refuse to run. Does that seem fair to you? Well, now you understand why I get angry when I hear this. To me, and this was true even when my friends and I were teenagers and not experiencing much of a surplus of empathy. Even when we were kids, we all felt like this is awesome. I am so glad Brad or John are running for me. I should run something for them so they get to play. That was normal. And not just normal, I believe it is correct. Yes, you should run something so they get to play. Also, you get perspective on what it's like to run, and that makes you appreciate them and not take them for granted. I mean, I don't know about you, but I love getting the chance to see my DM as a player. It is a lot of fun for everyone when the DM gets to play. I did a whole series of videos, you may have heard about it, showing you that running D&D is actually pretty easy and literally fun. So when I hear people complaining that their players don't just refuse to run a game, they refuse to even play anything else except D&D, I get a little flabbergasted. I actually think, well, they don't get a vote. You're the one doing all the work. That means they get to play whatever you want to run. As long as you're in the driver's seat, you get to pick the music. They don't like it? Then they should drive. These forever DMs, they all have something else in common. They don't just want to play every once in a while, they would also like to try other games. They tell me the games they're excited by that their players refuse to even look at. Isn't that interesting? The same person who's doing all the work so their friends can have fun, the same person who would like to play every once in a while, is also the same person who would like to try other games. They're willing to keep running, do all the work. They just want to try another game. It's like this one person is plugged into the hobby. These other people aren't interested in the hobby. They just want what they want, and they sort of treat their DM like an employee. Now, I do not think that this is most tables. It is probably not your table. But when I go online and I see folks complaining that their group won't play anything but D&D, I do not think the problem is people are stubborn and narrow-minded and set in their ways. I think there are not enough GMs in that group. That is a group with only one person willing to run and a bunch of players who refuse to do anything else. And maybe those players think that's fine, but would they still think it was fine when they saw their friend talking to me sad about how they never get to play, about how no one ever wants to try anything else, about how they feel trapped? Is it still okay then? I don't think this is a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence that the DM who wants to play, but no one else will run, is the same DM who wants to try other games, but no one will let them. I have noticed something else, and you may have noticed it too. Groups with multiple DMs tend to try lots of different games. I don't think that is a coincidence either. In other words, I don't think the problem is my players are stubborn and won't try any other game. I think the problem is my players are selfish and won't try getting behind the screen. The I can't get anyone else to run problem is the problem of my group won't try anything else. Let's talk about why this might be. Why does having multiple DMs inevitably lead to trying other games? I think I know, or I know one reason why it might be. Because as soon as your group has a second DM, even playing the exact same edition of the same game, the players all discover, wow, this is really different. Just switching from Jason's D&D game to Anna's D&D game can be a huge shift. You know, I have friends who, if they ran D&D, I know for a fact they would run something stupid, where we're all cute animals or something. But I would give it a shot, and I bet it would be a lot of fun because in my advanced age, I have learned a lot about how to see things from other people's points of view. If Anna wants to run this for us, whatever I might think, she must think it's cool. So let me see if I can find that. Once you have that experience of shifting gears wildly because someone else is running for the first time, and even though it's the same rules, it's a different world, it's a completely different style, once you've experienced that, the act of just swapping out the game engine, not that big a deal. Brad running Middle-earth for us, not that different from Brad running D&D for us. But they were both way more different than John's D&D game. And we loved playing Middle-earth. That system is super different from any other edition of D&D, and these days, it would seem pretty old and crufty, but when it was new and we were young, we loved how different it was from D&D. The rules and the system were different, but it was still Brad behind the screen. It was still a fantasy RPG. If Brad ran Paranoia for us, that would have been super different, because the tone of Paranoia is wholly unrelated to the tone of D&D or Middle-earth. In other words, changing from one DM to another can be way more different than changing from one game to another, depending on the game. That is why as soon as you have multiple DMs, you are on the path that will eventually, inevitably I think, lead to trying different games. Once you've got more than one person willing to run, Suddenly, lots of things are possible. Why not try Paranoia? It'll almost certainly be fun. And then we can play something else after that. We're just going to try it out. We're not going to get married. All right, so enough of me complaining. I don't like doing that. And I think whatever attention me bitching gets, it is the wrong kind of attention. So let's talk about trying other games and what happens when you have more than one DM. Let's talk about something fun and positive, which is trying new games. People seem to think it is hard to learn a new RPG. That has not been my experience. I mean, yeah, it's harder than learning a new board game because any board game has a very narrow problem set compared to an RPG. But compared to a lot of the nonsense we are expected to figure out in our lives, learning a new RPG is easy and fun, I think. People do it all the time. People just like you are peeling off from D&D, which is almost everybody's first RPG, and they are trying new games every day. I think maybe the reason you think, that's right, now I'm talking to you, person who still has not run, in spite of my brilliant, and if you will allow me to be modest for a second, legendary video series. I think the reason you think new RPGs are hard to learn is because you're imagining how hard it is to master the rules. Yeah, that can be hard. Sure, mastering anything is hard. That is what mastering means. But think back to the first time you ever played D&D. It was super fun, and you barely knew the rules. Learning new rules is fun because you're encountering a bunch of new ideas. Ideas these designers were really excited by. And pretty quickly, you get excited by those ideas too. In fact, I think if you've only ever played 5th edition D&D, any modern game you try and learn will be easier than that game for 2 reasons. First, most RPGs work the same way. You make a character, the character has stats, you do things, quests, mysteries, survive, contracts, whatever they call adventures. All RPGs have these things, and most of them involve rolling dice to see how well you did. They are not that different. In other words, you already learned one RPG. After that, it's easier. You know, a game like Wingspan is way, way different from a game like Dominion. But even 5e, as weird as it is, isn't that different from Mothership. 5e is also very weird in a way other games are not. It's weird in ways other editions of D&D are not. 5e is about preserving that 70s design in amber, so folks my age feel comforted. Stats that go from 3 to 18. Feels like home. Except, of course, they don't go from 3 to 18, they go from -4 to +4, except really, they go from like -2 to +5, but who cares? Other games, and there is no way you would know this if you've only ever played 5th edition, other games tend to be easier to learn because they are just trying to do the thing that they are. They're not trying to sum over 50 years of legacy. So most games are easier to learn because they're less weird. 1970s RPGs and probably most 1980s RPGs I would not recommend because they tend to be very strange and weirdly obsessed with math and charts and not much with play or fun. But I'd say any RPG from the 90s till now, you can figure it out in an afternoon. Also, RPGs tend to fall into a couple of different categories. Class and level is one, skill-based is another. Dice mechanics tend to fall into a small number of categories like roll under, dice pool, roll and keep. In other words, once you've played like 4 or 5 different RPGs, it gets even easier to learn a new one because you have all these other games to compare them to. Oh, this is like, yeah. Also, in this day and age, if you're curious about a game like Mothership or Numenera, I bet you can find videos explaining how the game is played. At least, videos that give you some context to get started yourself. So it will be easier for you to learn Mothership than it was for us to learn the Marvel Superheroes role-playing game, which was my second RPG, and it was way different from D&D, super different. You know, we didn't have Quinn and Quinn's Quest. Look, it's a video about Mothership. It's really good. Thank God for Quentin Quest. Well, this isn't strictly speaking a how-to-play video. It's a review of the whole thing, including the packaging. But there are other videos that are only about how to play. Easy. And like I said, you don't have to be an expert on the rules to run or play a game. Teenagers know this, or rather, they don't know that they don't know it. They just plunge ahead, assuming they're doing it right, and then over the course of years, they discover they were doing it super wrong the whole time. But you know what? They still had fun. So I get it. You don't like that feeling of, I'm not sure I'm doing this right.
I don't think I've done this one right.
But that's fine. Doing it right doesn't earn you any points. No one comes to your house to congratulate you on playing your first session of Shadow Dark without screwing anything up. Actually, I would be very surprised if anybody coming from 5th edition is going to screw up Shadow Dark. It is very straightforward compared to the game you're already playing. So, relax. Enjoy the process of learning the new coolness. Don't stress about it. It's okay if you don't get it right the first time. The point is to have fun. But also, players, when your DM wants to try a new game, help them. Help them figure it out. Don't make them go it alone. Many hands make light work. Figure it out together. I think when we leave our comfort zone, we start deploying all this maladaptive behavior to torpedo the experience before we even get started, to make it okay. And not just okay, right and proper, to give up on the new thing and go back to the old thing. But in fact, the more you join in, the more you participate with learning the new thing, the more fun you will have. And spoilers, you like having fun. There are things about the new game you won't understand. That's okay. That's normal. There are things that you think you don't like, but in fact, you just don't understand it yet. And as you play, you will realize you got it wrong and that actually it's pretty cool. So be open to the idea that this thing you think is weird and maybe you don't like might actually be something cool you just haven't figured out yet. Trying new games is fun, but there's no real commitment. There will be times when everyone's excited about a new game, you play it, and it's just not that cool, actually. That's okay. Learning what you like and don't like is also fun. If you look for excuses not to get behind the screen or not to try this game your DM is excited by, you will always find them. I suspect you will see many of these excuses in the responses to this video in various places online. Here's my explanation for why actually not playing the game my DM wants to try is good. Here's why it's a good thing none of us ever try getting behind the screen so that our DM gets to play. What is the point of that? Is it that these folks feel like if they can get someone to run for them without ever getting behind the screen themselves, that they have somehow won? Like it's a contest and exploiting their friend is like getting something for free that you know you should have paid for? I mean, sure, we've all done that in one scenario or another. I have definitely had the experience in my professional life of thinking, if I keep my mouth shut right now, work will get done without me having to do anything. But I think that is super different from when you and your friends are getting together to have fun. This might just be me. I remember LAN parties. We would all bring our computers over to somebody's house. And this was back in the 90s and early 2000s when, well, for one thing, we still had LAN parties, but you couldn't just plug all your computers into a hub and expect everything to work. You would spend hours trying to figure out why Dave's computer can see Craig's and Craig's can see Mark's, but Mark's can't see Dave's. So you have to update everybody's Ethernet drivers, and then you have to update everybody's video card drivers. And what happened was, and this happened all the time, two people would finally get into the game and they would stop trying to help and just start playing. With the result that eventually there's one person who can't get into the game for some reason and no one is helping them because everyone else, as soon as they could get into the game, they did. And now everything is someone else's problem. And I would be the one every time saying, no, we are not playing until everyone can play. We're going to figure out why Mark's computer can't see the game. And everybody would grouse and moan, but they'd do it. And it always baffled me that I was the only one who cared about this. As far as everybody else was concerned, if they couldn't get into the game, that was a problem we all needed to solve. But once they could get into the game, it was every man for himself. So I've experienced this behavior elsewhere. It is not unique to gaming tables. And like I said, this is probably not you. This is a minority of tables, but it's definitely a whole lot of the people I meet and talk to. Sure, there are people who should not get behind the screen. They do not have the temperament for it. I have known these people. They usually know themselves, and no one feels bad or weird about the fact that they never run. Nope, they do not have the temperament for it. Happy to have them as a player. But because there's a million different ways to GM, I think most players would make good DMs. And what are they waiting for? Now, having multiple directors in your group can cause drama. Of course it can. Every table is a table of people, and people are the source of drama. You can have tons of drama in a group with only one DM or no DM. Lots of gaming groups just play normal tabletop games every week, and there is drama. I would say the unique drama you get when suddenly you have more than one DM is the fact that now everyone at the table has a favorite. That's also okay. That's natural. It's okay to think, wow, I really like it when she runs, but I find I don't really like it when she runs. In my experience, we tend to put too much responsibility on the DM to be the one who is the source of fun. We, as players, have some power and therefore some responsibility there. Most RPGs, especially most modern RPGs, even if you don't love the way this director runs their game, even if you don't love these rules, you can still love playing your character. That is something you have control over. Remember, who your character is not defined by the rules. It's defined by you. The rules are an imperfect translation of your character, who is a person, into the rules of this game. So if you make a character you enjoy playing, meaning you enjoy their personality and attitude, then you have more fun, period. And if the game isn't awesome, you still have fun just being this person. That part is wholly under your control. Also, I think something people underestimate is how effective it can be to just play along. Take the game and your new director on their terms. Don't require the game to be run on your terms. Maybe I should say meet them and the game halfway. If you decide, I am going to give this game a shot, even though it sure seems like it's not my bag, but I'll play along and I'll sort of fake it, you will discover that sometimes when you do that, you end up having actual fun. But okay, maybe you're not having fun playing in this person's game. That can happen even in a group with one DM. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you are simply not having fun? Well, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you because I do not know you or your table, and I am neither able nor particularly willing to audit your game. Groups fall apart all the time. It's normal. Things don't always work out. But generally speaking, if you, as a player, work to make anyone who wants to run feel welcome and encouraged, you will have fun. This might help. Do not expect your new DM to run like your old DM. For one thing, that's not going to happen anyway. But also, you may initially find this new DM's style really jarring. Again, try playing along. Look at it this way. You have two choices. Either complain that the new DM isn't like your old DM, or find a way to enjoy the new weirdness. Celebrate those differences. If someone gets behind the screen for the first time, even if you end up not enjoying it, try being supportive. Because, spoilers, people get better at DMing the more they do it. If you bail out of somebody's first session as a DM because you're not having fun, you are missing the opportunity to have a lot of fun once they have their sea legs under them, so to speak. Except seals don't lay eggs, so I don't really know what that means. In other words, it can be useful to be supportive of someone who's not awesome, because sometimes that means they get awesome eventually. The number one reason I think why players should get off their ass and get behind the screen, it solves DM burnout. It super solves it. You will get to play more and more consistently if, when someone's burned out of DMing, someone else steps up. Nothing will recharge your DM's batteries faster than playing in another DM's game. Maybe yours. Because while you, who are new, are running your first session, your DM is sitting there thinking, oh man, I would have done this totally different. And that makes them itch to get back behind the screen. Also, I find I get better as a DM when I play with other DMs. The last person who ran for me was Phil, his game, Valengard. And the whole time I was thinking, wow, he is so much better at this than I am. I saw lots of ways I could be better. If you take a new game on its own terms and play along, basically, you will discover there are lots of games you actually like a lot. Most of my favorite albums, they only became my favorite albums after listening to them over and over again. Yeah, while I was doing other stuff sometimes, homework or cleaning the house, but eventually, over time, the songs revealed themselves to me, and I fell in love. I do basically believe in love at first sight, but I also believe you can fall in love over a period of time. I gave myself that time because I already loved this band, and this was their new album. Well, you already love your friends. So give yourself some time to see what made them excited to run this new game. I get this all the time. Folks show up in chat on Twitch and they ask if I would play whatever their favorite RPG is. And mostly I think they just want to see me get excited about something they love. But my answer is, I get excited to play whatever my friends want to run. That's what makes me excited. Oh, you want to run this for me? Then I want to play. There are lots of systems or settings I don't care for or I think are actively not good. But if somebody I knew was excited to run it, I would get excited to play because they're excited. If you are one of those folks who wished your group would try new games, here's some advice. First, it's not really your job to convince them that this game or that game is fun. It is the game's job to do that. We see this all the time in our Discord. Folks are excited about our new game, and they show up looking for advice on how to hook their players. And we always say the same thing. Wait until the book is out and it looks amazing with all the art and layout, and just put the books in front of them. Let them look at it. I think a lot of DMs are also engineers, by which I mean folks who get excited by cool new game mechanics. But players generally are not engineers, and while they can get excited about new mechanics, it's not the main thing that motivates them. Mechanics can be abstract, and it's often hard to understand how this rule someone is talking about works. It's much easier just to play it and see. I see this all the time. DMs talk up a new game by talking about the cool rules they're excited by, then they're sad when their players simply do not care. I think that's because players mostly get excited about the characters they can be and the things they get to do. So in my experience, the best thing you can do to hook players is just show them the character building rules with all the art so they can see what kinds of heroes they can be. I still remember falling in love with Shadowrun and the idea of playing a rigger who is a hacker that specializes in vehicles. So I'm not as good at hacking as a dedicated decker, but I'm a way better driver. I spent my money on a cool deck and a badass bike and a real cyberpunk bike and a cool helmet, and just being this dude who lived in the future, this neon Blade Runner future where I look cool and mysterious and have a dope anime bike, and just looking at all the cool sci-fi gear was a really powerful fantasy. The rules? Well, they were, weird. I think those first rules, a normal human could easily survive a point-blank shot from an autocannon. I think I remember that, but we didn't care. We didn't even notice that. We were just having fun being these characters in this world. So if you're excited by a game, show it to your players. Show them the game, art and all, and let them look through it. Let them fall in love with something. Don't try selling them on the mechanics. That might work. You know your players better than I do, but mechanics sound better when you're already in love. I think that's the video, folks. I started making D&D videos because I saw how reluctant people were to get behind the screen. Well, I think we made a difference there. We helped create a lot of new DMs. But what I've noticed in the years since then is mostly it's just one DM per group. And I think that is suboptimal. Players, it's up to you. Your DM will have more fun if you give running the game a shot, and you will find you have more fun. And soon, eventually, you will start playing other games that might be even more fun. I want to say, whatever game you're playing, if everyone's happy, that's all that matters. This video is about what happens when one person wants to try something else and everyone else refuses to even give it a shot. If you ever listen to drummers talk about Ringo Starr, they all say the same thing. Someone asks them if Ringo was a good drummer, which is a very pop culture question to ask. And any drummer you ask will tell you he was brilliant. Because real drummers, any real musician will tell you it doesn't matter what instrument you play. Your job is to serve the music. That's why Ringo was the only guy who could have been the Beatles drummer. His drum parts all lift the songs up. I think that's all of our jobs when we're at the table with our friends playing games. Am I serving the music? My friend wants to try another game. How can I help? There's nothing virtuous about trying different games. If you've been playing the same game forever and everyone's happy, that's all that matters. But often, not everyone is happy, and that's where this video comes in. Because I think there is something virtuous about serving the music, about everybody at the table thinking about everyone else's fun. Cannot wait to see the responses to this one. This is a lot more preachy than I usually get, but it's only because I feel really strongly about this. I already know we're going to say people saying, oh, it's not okay to bully somebody who's complaining about D&D, but it is okay to bully somebody into getting behind the screen. People will say that. It is just another way to avoid dealing with the issue. I don't think any reasonable person would watch this video and imagine I'm trying to bully anyone into anything. But that's okay. I believe this video will make a difference. Some people, maybe not a lot, maybe only a few, will see this video and think, I should get off my ass and run. For those few people, that will be a life-changing decision. And it's not just their lives that will be changed, it's everyone at the table. And that's worth dealing with the trolls. Until next time, folks, peace out.